Fighting games have always been pretty niche. They went from small, committed groups of players in the retro arcades of the early 90s, all the way up to Evolution's 9,000 plus entrants representing over 70 countries in 2023. They're just recently beginning to find new audiences, but for gamers on the whole, most people seem to have zero interest at all, or just see them as silly button mashers and party games. This has got to change because right now is the greatest time ever to get into fighting games. I believe there is no greater competition of gaming skill than traditional fighting games. You and your opponent, one-on-one. No teammates to worry about or to blame, no distractions, no broken items or characters, no being nursed along by a pre-made teammate. It all comes down to you, your knowledge, your execution, your strategy and adaptability. A strong player can use a weak character to utterly demolish a weak player with the strongest possible character. In my opinion, no competitive experience is as pure as fighting games. And with so many new releases that are excellent, and some incredibly promising ones on the horizon, now is the moment to get stuck in and to prove yourself. I mention all of this because I want you, dear viewer, to join the fighting game community. So let me explain to you all the reasons that you should do so.
Round 1.
Firstly, fighting games are obviously all about gameplay, skill expression, stylistic flair, and the thrill of battle. Fighting games boast some of the snappiest and most responsive controls ever. It's the bare minimum to even be taken seriously. It matters because every movement matters, every reaction time the difference between life and death. These games have to feel amazing or else they'll be dead upon arrival. And when you're in, you're given a toolbox to use how you see fit. No two players play exactly the same because everyone expresses their skill in their own way, finding their own tricks, combos, and exploitable bad habits. Sitting in training mode and experimenting like a mad scientist is half the fun for some people, but the true power of these games is in the competition, the nail-biting clash of skill, and the cathartic feeling of victory over your opponent. The most important thing is that they're very fun, very rewarding, and if you disagree, you're very wrong.
Round 2.
Because the overall scope of fighting games is quite limited, they have to grab your attention quickly. They can't lean on the drama of their plot or the worlds attached to them, because at the end of the day, you're going to be stuck in a small arena. So instead, fighting games have developed some serious style in their visuals and in their music. For example, Street Fighter VI leans into the hip-hop style and rhythm of older entries in the series, with beautiful bright colours and street art motifs. The Marvel vs. Capcom series replicates the inky art and colourful style of comic books. Anime fighters take everyone's favourite Eastern art styles and drags them into 3D space, or into beautifully hand-animated sprites.
Round 3.
A huge factor in the fighters of today is that the developers strive to remove the barriers to entry more and more with every new title, lowering the skill floor to help induct new players without fighting game experience. There are better tutorials than have ever existed, more game modes to introduce players to the mechanics and systems without immediately pitting them against other real players. and have some of the best practice mode features available in any genre of game that exists. All without removing the high skill ceiling and skill expression you can see at huge tournaments and in professional play. And that's to say nothing of all the online tutorials and resources provided by the community itself. These games can seem overwhelming when you've never tried them before, but with all the efforts made by the genre's developers and communities, it has never been easier to learn and get into fighting games than in this very moment.
Round 4.
Because it all comes down to the characters, these games put a huge amount of work into making their character designs as appealing and memorable as possible. There's always a huge range of varied characters and archetypes so that everyone can find a character they like. Grizzled battle grandpa? Check. Sexy buxom waifus? You've got it. You know the character designs are good because of how iconic and timeless some characters are, like Ryu and Ken, Scorpion and the Mishimas. It's also well worth mentioning that fighting games are also one of the most diverse genres in the industry, both in terms of representation in the games, but also in the player base. People from all over the world are brought together to become world warriors. Though these games have different priorities, many of the games put a lot of effort into their stories and lore, though the presentation has varied in quality over the course of decades. Historically, fighting game stories have been told in slideshow cutscenes and in dialogue boxes. More modern titles like Tekken 8 and Mortal Kombat have begun to try and put more time and care into their plots, with cinematic cutscenes that seamlessly blend between storytelling and gameplay. This is an area of fighting games that I believe has a bright future ahead of it. Fighting games are also known for their quirky alternate game modes, which are excellent for keeping things fresh. From Tekken's infamous Tekken Ball games and Tekken Bowling from the days of old, to the combo challenge modes increasingly present in modern titles, which also teach you some of the possibilities for the game's mechanics and for training your execution. One of the real treats in fighting games are the ones that allow you to tag team with your friends. If that sounds like fun, keep your eye on Riot's new League of Legends fighting game.
Round 5.
Lastly, for fear of rambling all day, I want to mention the community itself. The content creators on Twitch and YouTube are excellent. Any help you need or tech you want to learn, the community has got you covered. The esports are incredible even as a spectator. I've fond memories of gathering with friends over pizza to watch the EVO tournaments live. Nail-biting final rounds are a thrill to watch from the edge of your seat, especially with friends. The hype is stronger in the fighting game community than anywhere else. It's important, though, to temper your expectations. If I had to explain the greatest con of fighting games, it would be this. They are very, very difficult. You will get your buttocks handed to you over and over and over again until you learn. The faint of heart just won't survive. You need thick skin and a thicker determination, particularly if you're going to engage in all the shit talking that's famous in the community. You need to be prepared to put in the hours to tackle a potentially very steep learning curve. But if you've got skill, patience, talent, or just have something to prove, this is an essential trial by fire. It's precisely because of the difficulty and challenge that victory tastes so damn sweet in fighting games. So now that you've got a fire in your belly, and you're going to do what Papa Salem suggests, where do you begin? The first step is to glance over some of the bigger fighting game franchises and just see what best grabs your attention.
Final round.
Street Fighter is a series of stylized, cartoonish 2D fighters, where stringing your attacks together with famous special moves like Hadouken and Shoryuken will net you some high damage combos. Learn to control the space, block your opponent's moves, and use special mechanics such as super meter and cancelling attacks to gain an advantage over your opponents. Tekken is a high-pressure 3D fighter where you can weave into the foreground and background as well as left and right. You get one button to control each limb and a long list of moves. Block your opponent's oppressive strings and wait for the perfect moment to punish them with satisfying and creative juggle combos. And for my fellow weebs, beautiful anime-style fighters are in absolute abundance. There are too many to talk about really, but if I could recommend one or two, I'd strongly suggest Guilty Gear Strive, a graphically beautiful anime fighter with incredibly deep system mechanics and an awesome heavy rock soundtrack. Or perhaps Granblue, which has a free-to-play offering with the restriction of a rotating cast of free-to-play characters. Once you've made the all-important choice of game, you then want to think about picking a character. I live by the rule of cool and suggest you pick whichever character just appeals the most. For me, this roughly means pick the edgiest one. I suggest you ignore tier lists when you're starting out because they're only really relevant to the pros and otherwise they're just a cope engine, to be honest. Some people will be lab technicians who spend hours in training mode and watching online combo videos. Others will learn by doing in arcade mode and story modes. But whichever road you take from here, the most important thing is to put in the reps and grind out those online matches. Only in the heat of battle are true warriors forged. To wrap up, let me say this. I love this genre. It is so near and dear to my heart. From button mashing on Tekken 3 as a boy, to the rebirth of the entire genre with Street Fighter 4, and the thousands of hours fighting hence, I have been enthralled with fighters. They were such a core experience to my teenage years that I will follow these games for the rest of my days. Fighting games are not just some niche genre. They're a whole world of competitive experiences awaiting discovery. I truly wish for more people to try these games and find out how wonderful they can be. The fighting game community spans the world and people from every walk of life who share their passion with the world and with each other. Many are salty, prepared to inform you of their coital practices with your mothers when you hand them their asses, while others are waiting to welcome you with open arms, a sly grin, and a big clackety arcade fight stick. So don't leave us hanging. We need your free ass to climb the ranked ladders after all.
Game over.